Good morning. How is everyone? Oh, you got to do better than that. Come on, this is digital now, right? I mean, how's everybody doing? Great. Okay. Was it a terrific evening last night, right? Boy, when you get a chance to go to Disney, particularly Epcot, the first folks to think about the future and to see all of that, it was really amazing. Now, I don't know about you, but what was that strange meat that they were making last night? It looked very interesting. Tasted fabulous. Well, I'm going to take the next hour or so and give you a sense of what's coming next. As a futurist, I write books, and we help companies think about one thing and one thing only: what's coming next. I want to suggest to you that perhaps the future of mobile is also about things that you're already doing, but they're not yet connected to you. So, for instance, when we think about mobile, a lot of people want to think about devices or about your mobile phone or what's the evolution of those devices, and I'll talk a bit about that. But it's also about things like healthcare and education and entertainment and media. In fact, getting comfortable with this notion of mashups, the mashups of mobile as an enabler for what we're already doing and can do even better, that's where all this is going. So the themes of this are, I'll talk about the top mobile trends, give you a sense of how they're going to impact on your business and certainly your members, what's next in your organization, and I'm going to come back to a couple of key themes that are important to me because, other than me taking you into my time machine into the future and giving you a glimpse of what's coming, it's also important to take away, well, what do you do with all that, okay? Because I am here to disrupt your thinking, in case anybody's wondering, right? I am here to disrupt your thinking, particularly your thinking. And the people that sat in the back row want to disrupt your thinking. So it's about, really, the future of mobile is about communications, real-time communications, which every organization needs to do better. And the demands for real-time communications based on a mobile architecture are going to be very high with your members and certainly their members. So communications. The second is collaboration. The ability to be able to collaborate with agility. You put those together, and you think about these, because you could go back to your boards of directors and say, okay, here are 3 or 4 things. Let's talk about them in the context of what we can do to empower our members better. The first is communications, real-time communications. The second is deep collaboration. Not just throwing information at folks. Third is connectivity. What is the purpose and meaning of this connectivity? What's it going to look like? And it's going to change. And then finally, community. Every organization really is tied to an ecosystem of communities. How do you want to touch these communities? How do you want to link these communities? How do you want to connect these communities? How do you want to empower these communities? So those are the strategic takeaways, in case anybody wants to leave the presentation early. Those are your takeaways. Now I'm going to take you on a tour into the future and give you a sense of what's coming next. I'm going to pose a couple of challenges based on those 4 key strategic takeaways for your board of directors, for you, and for your staff to think about, okay? So, first of all, the accelerated change that's facing us. Fantastic disruptions. This is just the beginning of what I refer to as the extreme future. And the only question is, and this is the question I've been asking for 30 years. I started at Apple Computer. I was on the original Mac team in charge of business, 1984. And I learned then, I had this illumination in 1984 that we were inventing an entirely new narrative, an entirely new conversation about technology and culture, but it was really about trying to understand how technology was going to empower people's lifestyle and how that lifestyle was going to be different. By the way, I'm still trying to understand that. But I think that we're on the beginning of asking ourselves, well, how can we make our organizations more future ready? And my definition of future readiness is not to necessarily embrace every new innovation. Today we're going to talk about mobile. We could certainly talk about nanotechnology tomorrow, neurotechnology. We might talk about quantum mechanics and its impact on healthcare and communications. No. But the point of it is how do we build organizations, your organization, so that you're more future ready? You're more ready to learn quickly, be agile, know when things are emerging, and how to be out in front so you can bring your members, navigate them into the future. That's my mission, is to help you think about that in the context, yes, of mobility, but also in the context of how you can be a more agile, organic, sustainable organization to lead your members into what I refer to as the extreme future. I wrote a book about it. Some of you have that book. So accelerating change really is the new norm. Future innovations will drive all kinds of competitive advantage. This is what's on the mind of your members. And this is the early stage of the global innovation economy. Early stage. So we were texting earlier, right? How many folks have been sending a video email to each other? Distributed video email, 2, 3, 4, yeah. How many people have integrated cloud computing so your refrigerator knows when it needs to order orange juice and other products? Show of hands. You don't have that yet? Gee, we have that at my house, yeah. How about your car? Is your car emailing the shop to order new parts because the sensor in it tells it that it needs those parts? Is that happening yet? You got one person in here? Yeah, it's starting to happen. Right. How about folks that have digitally cloned themselves and they only work 3 hours a day? Sure. In fact, this is not the real me. The real Dr. Canton is back surfing in Hawaii today. I just want to share that with you. This is a good copy, though, okay? So this is the early stage of the innovation economy. Why? Because we just invented, which Don knows, we just invented the computer about 3 minutes ago, the internet about 5 minutes ago. Nanoscience is just emerging. Neuroscience is just emerging. This is a very dynamic era that you're living in. And the good news is you're all going to live a lot longer to be able to enjoy it. One of the biggest innovations certainly is in healthcare. And clearly, digital innovations, good thing to talk about, all the digital innovations, particularly impacting on medicine and healthcare, are creating tremendous longevity, health. You're going to be around a lot longer. How many folks would like to live an extra 10 to 15 years with the vitality of a 20-year-old? Show of hands. Yeah, you bet. I didn't say the brains of a 20-year-old. No, I didn't say. Yeah. So innovations are going to come much faster, much faster. We're living in an era of radical innovation. So 3D movies, certainly Disney's done a great job with that. We saw 3D fireworks last night. Yeah. So it's great to be here with Disney as a co-sponsor of Digital Now. I work with Disney. I'll show you some movies that I've worked on that are directly related to this mobile future. I've been a futurist for Disney on 3 films now. But I want to just say 3D in the movies, 3D in some TVs, 3D on a mobile environment, 3D on that space over there, 3D coming out of your table. The idea of pervasive knowledge and information that is sputtered into smart spaces. This is where we're going. Matt gave me a nice introduction from IEEE, which I'm proud to be a member of. Great organization. You know, you don't need to be an engineer to join IEEE. Matt didn't mention that, but that's actually true, right? I don't have a double E, I have a PhD, but at the end of the day, nobody asked me. It's like you don't need to be over 55 to join AARP. Well, if you want to find out what's going on in the future, IEEE will certainly tell you, but this notion of smart spaces is emerging, where 3D will become part of that reality, and I'll show you what it looks like. And I just want to let you know, in this dynamic world, and like I said, this is the early stage of the global innovation economy, we're learning to hack life in terms of digital biology. Digital physics, we're hacking matter. That's what nanoscience is. It's really digital physics. We're learning how to mix and match, redefine. Nanotechnology is the manipulation of matter at the atomic level. Only difference between sawdust and steak is our ability to be able to manipulate. Now, we're not quite there yet, but we're getting there. I just want you to know that whether we're talking about digitally hacking the planet or digitally hacking biology or digitally hacking the universe, you're living in a time of extreme innovations. And these extreme innovations will change every single one of our lives. It'll change lifestyle. It'll change work style. It'll change the way we interact with each other. So radical disruptions now are part of the game. So you may have heard that, well, gee, in the past 50 years, there have been more innovations in computing and transportation, certainly telecommunications, in the previous 50,000 years. Well, my forecast is the next 10 years, there will be a radical transformation, and I can tell you exactly what are the top technologies. Today we're going to focus on mobile, but I want to put this, as we talked earlier about context, to put it in a larger context. Really, what's next for mobile is going to be driven by certainly part of a mix of other technologies, and there are 5 key technologies. Certainly nanoscience, bioscience, IT and networks, neuroscience, and quantum science. So this is a map, not of technologies. This is a map of the future of our civilization. This is what will architect, empower, drive innovation for the next 100 years. So this is the context that mobile is in. You're living at a time of accelerated exponential technologies that are transforming culture, that are transforming work, that are transforming health, and I'll give you a little glimpse of where all that's going. And the key thing to think about that's going on in the economy is what I refer to as innovation Darwinism. Innovate, adapt, or die. That's why you're here at Digital Now. This is a great conference. You're here to learn how to adapt and learn more. And being able to continue to learn, and I'm doing that now. As a futurist, I'm continually learning new things and bringing those new things to my clients. So let's talk a little bit about mobile. Mobile drives the innovation economy. It is about global agility and connectivity, and it's all about strategic change. So I'll take you out now. We'll focus on mobile. I'll give you a sense of where all that's going. First of all, as I said, this is about a mobile lifestyle shift. It's about all of a sudden that people are no longer just in an office per se. They are mobile. They are in the marketplace. They're in the environment. They're not tethered to a place. This is going to increase more and more. About 80% of my clients now are mobile. They no longer give out numbers. They can be found at a place. They're in the marketplace. They're in the world. They're in the ecosphere. Mobile is a lifestyle transformation. It is a culture shift and a different way of thinking. Now, along what this comes with, the trends that come with mobile as a culture shift have to do with knowledge engineering, have to do with real-time access to information, have to do with a blended reality, and I'll define all of these, and some of the things I've talked about earlier in terms of deep collaboration. This is a fundamental different way that organizations and individuals are working and living. Fundamentally different. And the expectations of your members for content and information and services that you provide are going to be driven by the immediacy and real-time access of information. And organizations that understand this can be agile enough to be able to morph and be responsive. Organizations that don't adapt fast enough or innovate fast enough may be left behind. We are mobile. Do you get us? Is the big question. We spend a lot of time doing focus groups with the end users, families, businesses, all different demographic groups, to try to understand how are you embracing all of this. Their biggest concern is, do my associations, do my organizations, do my employers really get us? Do they understand how we're changing? I need that information now. I need to have access. You can hear a lot more about, for instance, cloud computing, which is really about more real-time access to services. We can get information, but it's going to be, today it's information, tomorrow it'll be media, the next day it'll be education, the next day it'll be healthcare, the next day it'll be collaborative information for work. Mobile empowers customers to do more and empowers your members to do more. And they're going to look really different than you. They're going to act different than you. These are my customers from the future. How about this one? You ready for this member? You ready to hook her up? She wants to get hooked up. You ready? Yeah, that's what it's going to look like. You ready to hook her up? Yeah. It's a mashup of fashion and technology. Kate knows what I'm talking about. Now, let me drill down a little bit here on terms of where we're going regarding just kind of the, what I refer to as the mobile web 2.0. This is a 2020 forecast for you, just to give you an idea of where we've been and where we're going. So on the bottom there, in and around where we are kind of now, is real-time interactive content and management. We're heading towards more ultra augmented reality. You heard a little bit about augmented reality. I think about it differently. I think about it as simply this. The internet as a pervasive world is growing up. The internet is developing a self-awareness. The real secret projects that are going on at Google, Cisco, and other places are embedding intelligence into the network. I want to say that again. I gave the keynote at Cisco about 2 weeks ago. I can tell you, all the biggest companies right now, their efforts in cloud computing are going to make the network, which is critically important, in other words, mobile broadband tied to a cloud-based network is the future. And increasingly, the internet is going to be developing a kind of digital awareness, a digital sentience. And this awareness is going to change the entire dynamic. Think about it. What do you do now in terms of a mobile device, or to access the internet, or to connect with information? What do? You have to do something. In the future, the near future, the network will be intuitive systems. It will pay attention to you. Your mobile device will pay attention to you. Matt won't need to have to go ahead and put something around his eyes. It will have tele-awareness of you and start to understand what you're trying to accomplish. And maybe that what you're trying to accomplish is connect, collaborate, empower your members of your organization. The notion of an entirely new kind of digital sentience is emerging. And therefore, things like, another key trend, consumer-generated media becomes a lot easier to be able to do if the network has embedded intelligence. So this is another key trend. Now, the consumer-generated media, notice it's about consumers developing different kinds of content around virtual worlds, games. Some of these I'm going to show you, commercials, but it's about a very different world of your members becoming architects and producers of media. You know, what's interesting about the new iPad is, iPad 2 just came out. It's got a camera in it. It's really a production platform. And also it has cinema-making software in it. So the ability to be able to capture and produce media and to be able to show that media. And I'll show you some examples of what that looks like. So the era of smart mobility is emerging in the future. 3D holographics, enhanced reality, and I want to point out one very important piece here, which is not just location services, but the geo-web. In fact, the internet, as it's emerging and it's going to be available on mobile, it's going to be more geo-intelligent ready. Geo-intelligence. You might want to do a search for that and look at the implications of what that means. So smarter, more real-time, more enhanced, and clearly tied to geo-intelligence. The mobile future demands a new strategy. Can you be where your members are? And what will that mean? How do we define that? That's a big strategic question. What is the strategy that will drive being where our members are? If they're all mobile, if they're no longer tethered to a particular place or desk, how do their needs change? How should we as an organization change to meet those needs? And what are the implications of that? How do we drive that conversation? Part of it is to ask them, but part of it is they don't know yet. That's how dynamic this particular environment is. Well, clearly you're talking about a connected planet. There's 5 billion cell phones on the planet. Just in terms of, there's only 7 billion people. My forecast is by 2020, you're talking about almost 7 billion cell phones. It's the notion of real-time, cross-cultural, global communications is going to create a different kind of environment, certainly one that looks like this.
Yeah. Okay.
So, what do you think of the amendments?
That's great, Sid. Yeah, that's brilliant.
Well, have a good flight.
Bye then.
Agents, please.
Secretary?
How can I help, Marjorie?
Can you arrange for myself, Ronald, and Bernard to see Swan Lake?
I'll just check with their agendas. I've booked tickets for Wednesday at the Apollo. Ronald will pick you up at 7.
Now, about 80% of that scenario already exists today. Okay? The ability of, then the convergence of systems for payment and transactions, the linking up of individuals who are part of their own personal clouds that are all tied to those mobile platforms and portals. 80% of that is already there today. Standards aren't quite there. It's not all yet connected. It will be. But this scenario is emerging. And did you notice there was no keypad there in that mobile device? She was making a transaction. She was looking. She required an avatar to help her navigate the transaction and communicate with other avatars. So this notion of collaboration in a wireless future where the internet is always on, always aware, always present, and integrated into the fundamental services. Some of the services are tied to your organizations. This is where we're going. And we can't get there with the limitations of keypads and the way devices are even today. It's going to be a lot more pervasive and intuitive, such as this. So this notion of real-time knowledge is critically important. Mobile creates somewhat of an expectation by consumers that they'll have access to real-time information. Again, another takeaway for you with your boards. What does that mean, real-time knowledge? How do we provide real-time knowledge? Not everything that's on our website, not everything that we do. What is the most critical real-time knowledge we need to provide to not just empower our members and customers today, but to empower our members and customers for tomorrow? What are they going to need next week, next month, next year? How do we plan for that when we start shaping our mobile infrastructure? Another important strategic question. Because mobile knowledge management, again, is the way for you to be able to differentiate what you do, to be able to provide value. And you got to ask those questions then, well, what is the specific knowledge management tools, portals, capabilities that we want to provide that will empower our members? That is the critical strategic question. What is the way we're going to empower them? What are they going to need? Because they're going to be surrounded by a lot of information. There's going to be a lot more noise. How do we help them deal with this kind of convergence? And let me talk a little bit about convergence. What I mean by convergence is a couple of things. One is what's on your desktop today you'll wear tomorrow. So the TV, notice, we're on the edge of this right now. Apple TV. How many folks have experimented with Apple TV? Yeah, so Apple TV. So you think about the TV, the computer, the internet, the telephone, the radio, mashed up, the game device, mashed up into one kind of mobile experience. That's where all this is going. In fact, if you have an Apple TV and you've got an iPad, you notice that the iPad app comes up and says, would you like, if you have them in the same environment, they're tele-aware of each other. Devices are tele-aware of each other and says, would you like to see that on your TV right now? Eventually, it'll say, would you like to see that on the wall? We can sputter that on the wall right here in that smart space. Is that mobile? Absolutely. The other part of convergence is to understand what is going to converge in terms of trends. So healthcare driven by aging population of demographics for boomers, driven by the need for folks to live longer and maybe even live in their homes longer, is going to drive a whole new world of mobile healthcare. Mobile healthcare is going to be probably one of the biggest drivers and part of an entirely new marketplace, which I refer to as health enhancement. It's about $1 trillion marketplace that's emerging. As boomers live older, want to be healthier, more agile, you're going to need mobile technology to be able to drive that conversation. So the mobile ecosystem, what I'm referring to of applications, you heard about apps and all that, really is driven by things that today are silos and are fairly dumb. They're not digitally connected yet. So in terms of energy, you're going to hear a lot more about the smart grid, which is a digital transformation. We talked about medical. I'll show you some more about medical. Certainly, social networks. We'll talk about infotainment, media. This is a key driver. You know, pay attention, a big takeaway, pay attention to what's going on with consumers. Particularly, go visit the game developers trade show sometime. You want to see who's inventing the future really quickly? Spend some time with game developers. I'm going to talk about games. There's a subset of games which every organization should know about called serious games, because games are a way to be able to convey knowledge and information, and I feel like games are going to be a way to be able to convey also a new era of training and development in order to get information. So we'll talk more about that, but this is kind of my big picture. Let me drill down on the mobile web. It's all about fast, accelerated, intuitive intelligence. It's all about enabling a lifestyle. Again, big takeaway for you, how do we enable the mobile digital lifestyle that's emerging? How does our organization pay attention to that? What does that look like? When people are clearly telework, working from home, clearly working from smart spaces, what does that look like? I'm going to make a forecast here. By the way, these videos, these couple of ones are from Phillips, my client. I'll show you some other ones from some other folks, but I'm going to make a forecast. I like to make forecasts at conferences so people later on can say, I remember, back in 2011, you made this forecast, and you were really wrong, or you were really right. Here's my forecast. There will emerge immersive virtual worlds, which you'll get through your mobile device, and that mobile device there'll even be laws about where you can actually get access to these immersive virtual worlds that will be as tantalizing, as seductive, as entertaining as this world. I refer to the phenomenon as blended reality. There will be rules, laws, policies related to this because we're moving towards an era of immersive media. And that immersive media is clearly going to be mediated by not just the mobile device, but a mobile lifestyle. And these are some experiences of them. In fact, there's training that's now done, specifically training that's done. You got a sense of this at Disney the other night when we were on the, you could design your own roller coaster, and the Disney machine went ahead. The algorithms that you used were digitally ported to that device, and then you rode the ride that you designed. Well, for all intents and purposes, there is nobody that's doing surgery today that does not learn first in a virtual environment and a tel-robotic environment in terms of how to be able to conduct that surgery. In fact, when you ask doctors what is the key thing that trained them, got them prepared for laparoscopic or tel-robotic surgery, they tell you video games. Entirely different world. Tomorrow, the answer will be mobile video games. I'll give you an example of what they are. So this notion of sputtering information on spaces, forgetting about devices, is where we're all going. We will have holographic payments, holographic projections around us. So the extreme future of the net is going to be, as I said earlier, a digitally aware environment, aware of us. We're made up of always on, always connected, and most important, always aware. Remember what I said earlier? The big secret. Can you guys keep a secret, by the way? Show of hands. How many people can keep a secret? Keep a secret? Okay. It's all about, the secret projects are all about making the web not just biomimetic, but neuromimetic, reflective of the way we think. And by 2030, I've got a slide that goes to this, we think that the internet, particularly driven by mobile broadband, mobile rich media, mobile platform, will, by 2030, the internet will be equal to the intelligence of the human brain. Do we know what the implications are of that? The emergence of digital artificial intelligence? We have some ideas. I'll talk a little bit about that. Web capacity equals the human brain. This is based on a project. I'm on the faculty of Singularity University, which is sponsored by Google and NASA at NASA Ames. It's a graduate program on advanced technologies, and for all intents and purposes, we're starting to model now as scientists what this mobile AI looks like. It's all about information that finds you. Or as I said earlier, the network knows you. This is what's coming, and you want to be ready for. I also want to talk a little bit about the end of marketing, I want to talk a little bit about the future of digital influence and marketing in this. And I want to show you some example where it is, just to ground us in this conversation, in case anybody hasn't paid attention to, the era of you in a very linear way, speaking to members or customers, that linearity of marketing, that me to you that way, is gone in terms of influence, key influence. The key influencing factor in the future, the near future, which is 10 minutes from right now, is people talking to people about you. Members talking to other members, customers talking to other customers, and they're the ones that are influencing how relevant your organization is. Not that you should stop the linearity, but recognize that there's a non-linear marketing that's emerging, which is, for all intents and purposes, becoming, or it's killing traditional marketing. We've seen that with, how many people doing space ads, radio advertising versus RSS. If you're not RSS compliant, have a blog, Facebook, Twitter. In fact, in the past 24 hours, just to show you how dramatic these changes are, Homeland Security in the past 24 hours decided the way they're now going to rate the level of security and communicate with their members, which of course are everybody in the United States, is through Twitter and Facebook. Dramatic. Most brands now, big brands, are using social networking. Now, this is just this is the tip of it. We still haven't had social network, remember, convergence. Social networking converging with the internet and TV and then mobile. That's the next evolution here. You're going to be sitting watching TV and you're going to be on the internet and you have multiple forms. If you want to spend some time and see what the future is, hang out with a 10-year-old. Interactive texting, online communications, Skyping, doing work, homework, media windows on, and soon it'll be sputtered information around the room, sputtered information, holographic information. So a big part of this is going to be media. So right now, social media is kind of perplexing. We've been grounded about that. The interesting part about this, again, another takeaway for you and your boards, is to ask the question, what is our social graph look like? What is the ecosystem of relationships that social networks show us that we should pay attention to? How do we show up? How does our organization show up in the ecosystem of social networking and relationships? How do we want to influence that? How do we want to be showing up? Because I can tell you, every single one of your members, like myself, is the center of an ecosystem of relationships and communities. How would you model yourself? Where would you put your organization? How do you desire to shape that? As God knows, the future is already here. It just hasn't been downloaded yet. That's what we're doing here at Digital Now, right? We're downloading the future so you can get it and be on top of it, right? So this is all about you at the center of an ecosystem of communities and digital relationships. How do you want to shape that? How do you want to influence and be influenced by it? Check this out. This is the future. I have to click it to make it be the future.
When I fall, when I'm bested, you will call. You're my only, you're my all. And you know, So kiss me for a while, hide in your smile. I don't wanna lie, only to beguile. Kiss me 1, 2, 3, yeah, that's the magic key, and get me out of here. All right.
Remember I said earlier that geointelligence was a really important emerging trend for the mobile web. What does that mean? Well, how about social tagging? Now, I know somebody's saying, wait a minute. We don't want to be intrusive. We're concerned about privacy. Yeah, so I am too. Viewdle, Viewdle. Check it out. Part of this is not to say to you, look, everything here is something you should do. This is part of suggesting to you, this is part of my goal to, remember, disrupt your thinking, is to show you what's going on and emerging on what I refer to as the edge cultures, the digital edge cultures. things that are emerging that have value and have maybe even questionable value. I don't have it all figured out either, but I do know when I see an innovator like this, which represents social tagging, that this is an important trend to try to understand. And again, big takeaway for you and your boards, grab a couple of these videos, grab a couple of these images, steal every idea that you see here today, go put it in front of them and say, okay, what are the implications? How's our world changing? Look at this. What are the implications? What do you think we need to do to be able to respond to that? How do we create more future readiness in our organization to be able to not just be reactive to the future, but to shape the future we want, to shape a preferred future that we want for our members, for our customers? How can we be more relevant in terms of embracing change? Because we know every association has a challenge of embracing change, right? We don't need to do a survey about that to know that's what we're up against. I've been talking for 25, 30 years to associations about how to better manage change. And this is just one of a number of changes that have to go with being sustainable for the long term, being meaningful, having purpose, and being out in front of leading our members into the future. That's what it's all about. This is just one example of that. I want to also point out that fundamental to the future of mobile is the Internet of Things. The Internet of Things, much bigger. There's about 10 billion jelly beans. Those are chips that are connected, but they haven't yet been connected, and they're not quite talking to us. They're talking to each other. Eventually, this model of the Internet that I've been talking about will have a bigger impact. Will be everything, simply put, will have an IP address. Everything. Every piece of clothing, every object, every piece of paper, every device, in fact, increasingly, even us. So this whole meta level of communications between objects, other than people, is going to drive a lot of what's going to happen about the emergence of the Internet. And geo-intelligent products that are tied to these chips, that are tied to these geotags, are going to be emerging. And we start to see this at, Walmart and other companies are using geotags for inventory, but we're going to start to see that in the consumer space. We're going to start to see that all over in terms of logistics.
You can space-age portal to the Tower Records virtual store. Once inside, you can see and hear the Tower Top 10 CDs.
Until I hear it from you.
Each section you visit is a different Tower Top 10 CD. You can listen to a hit song, see the music video, and even learn about that musical artist. You can interact with other real Tower Record shoppers in real time.
I can't believe how young the guys in Silverchair are.
I know. I wish I was that talented.
You can purchase CDs from any one of the Tower Records hosts.
Hi, welcome to Tower. May I help you?
Yes, I'd like to buy the Blind Melon CD.
Now, my reason for putting that up there is the tower is gone, number one. Two, CDs are gone, right? But what's cool about this is an interactive virtual environment where you can make transactions, you can interact, right? At the point, I want to say how fast things are moving. There's going to be, the reason I like to keep that in my reel is because 25% of all organizations will not adapt fast enough and change, okay? The Wang computers are gone. We were talking last night, right? Where are they? Where is Tower? They didn't adapt fast enough. Think about Netflix. No real estate, no retail, no brick and mortar. Think about how fast their stock has grown, how fast their company has grown by being at the right place at the right time. My point to suggest to you is this is all about your adaptation and evolution. This is not just a wake-up call for business. If you're going to be relevant in an association, you've got to be able to adapt, evolve, learn new things, embrace innovation. Of course, we're in a dynamic environment of this extreme future. The point of this particular slide is to share with you what some of these digital agents might look like and how they might be helpful and mediators of your future. But let's move on. Let me kind of glimpse a little further. There's another part of this which has to do with pervasive networks. Remember I said earlier about mixed reality or blended reality? You're going to see a lot more of these mixed reality environments showing up in this reality. I want to show you some other examples of this because we're going to be buying differently. Transactions are going to be different based on this convergence. And this is kind of the big picture of what that convergence looks like. This is you start to put together mobile, rich media, virtual reality, the web. You have an entirely different platform for doing transactions that's emerging right now. How many people have purchased something over their TV in real time. You like that? You see it? You buy it? Anybody doing that yet? One person? Yeah, one person? Two? Next year, 2 years from today, you're going to see dynamic environments where you'll be able to interact and purchase. Now, mobile entertainment, remember I said earlier, this mobile lifestyle is going to be a big driver. This is an example of mixed reality where we're porting 3D information, holographic information, into physical spaces. This is very dynamic. I did my second Cisco telepresence between San Francisco. I gave a conference keynote to a group in Australia. We used telepresence. It was very intimate, very close, very efficient. Again, right now it's kind of big iron making that work. I know we can use Skype. Skype, very interestingly, in the past 90 days, show you how fast this is moving, Skype has now been accepted in terms of news media and on broadcast TV as an accepted standard of quality for doing interviews. Very interesting. Only because of what happened on the internet. You're going to see a big move with Google, a big move with other companies now to embrace. Google's redoing YouTube to be able to now go for this distributed media environment. Let me show you something. Let me set this up beforehand. So as an example of this, other than giving keynotes and doing research and stuff, we also make stuff at the Institute for Global Future. So we build architectures and infrastructures, and we also create media. So here's an example of a media that we now have produced, and I'm the executive producer. We produced it around the world in 3 locations, and it is a series of mobile web series called The Time Travelers that was designed for kind of teaching kids in high school and college about what's next for technology. But what's interesting about it is that we used Second Life, the virtual reality environment, as a media to produce this, and it just won an international narrative and storytelling award last week. I'll show you just a little bit of it.
Wow, we are in the future. Look, they're flying.
So what I'm trying to say is that we're in the midst of a revolution. To produce that kind of media, and we've got like now 5 episodes on this, going 20 minutes. In order to produce that on a traditional CGI platform, or the kind of stuff that Steven Spielberg does, or Lucas, at Industrial Magic, up to about 24 months ago, would have been, quite frankly, $150,000 a minute, just to give you a scale. We produced this for under $50,000, this entire 20-minute series. What I'm trying to explain to you is that we're in a time of dynamic change, and whether it's gaming or media or mobile games and virtual worlds. Now, I'll give you a setup for this. So this is an example of another award-winning platform. This is an interactive multimedia game that we designed called NanoDoc 2015, which was designed to teach folks about the implications of nanotechnology. It won the Interactive How Design Award a number of years ago. I'll give you just a taste of it. It is now available on a mobile platform. Games are important for you.
Nanotechnology is a revolutionary new science with vast potential for helping humanity. It involves manipulating matter at an atomic level, building tiny devices at the nano scale, 100,000 times smaller than a human hair. Scientists will use nanotechnology to create smart living machines that can improve the health and enhance the performance of the human body. In the future, doctors will diagnose and treat patients with these nanodevices. In this game, you'll be a doctor in the year 2015. You'll be asked to diagnose and treat a patient using nanodevices. Along the way, you'll have help from a medical assistant. Meet Sophia, your artificially intelligent virtual assistant. She has real-time access to all medical information on the internet.
My name is Sophia. I'm a self-aware Class 5 AI. I am here to help you diagnose and treat your patient. This is your patient, Sabrina. She is 16 years old and is suffering from an unidentified disorder that is attacking her body's systems. She needs your help, Doctor. The disease is crippling her. It may threaten her life. I've already scanned her DNA, and you can see that her genetic makeup indicates a high risk of developing a life-threatening neurological illness. I'll administer a genetic nanoprobe to gather intelligence about her condition and to guide your treatment. Doctor, the probe has identified the disease. It's a very dangerous retrovirus called Rogue.
Anyway, you get the point? What I'm trying to suggest here is that games, there's a subset of games called serious games. If you haven't paid attention to that, it's on the edge culture, it's emerging. Do a search for serious games. Why? Games and simulation are critical parts to our future. Where's my friend who I had dinner with last night from the Association of Chess Doctors and all that? And what's that association? Yeah, we had a great conversation. How much is simulation a part of your members' world now? Tremendously. You want to know more about it, talk to him. I can tell you that serious games, simulation is transforming education of all areas. But interestingly, games, think about that. Again, takeaway for you with your board. What's the game we could create? Because there's game platforms that you can find that kids have developed, kids meaning under 25. There's lots of game platforms that you can layer your content on to play a game that might be critical to your organization, to your members' needs. Think about that. Sounds crazy? I don't think so. We're teaching doctors about nanoscience and nanoengineering in this, and college kids. At the end of the day, there is a game tied to your industry that could be available on a mobile platform. Now, the why I showed you this is Disney's Buena Vista. This is some of the, I've been involved with a couple of movies, but this is an interesting movie. It's relevant to the future of mobile because, and I don't know if people saw Surrogates, but Surrogates with Bruce Willis was a movie that came out, and it was all about the mobile future, really. It was about a time when people went ahead and decided that it'd be less hazardous to stay at home, and they communicated with their surrogates, which were these Tel-robotics, and they communicated using mobile technology where you'd lay back basically and you would design the movements and really direct the movements of your robots. And there was a whole narrative and story about it that was very interesting. But Disney was very bold in taking this creative step in terms of all of this. My point of all this is saying that part of our future may be for some work, for some environments, we are going to use Tel-robotics. I talked about immersive environment, but how about the ability to be able to actually control a physical object? That's what doctors are doing today as they navigate this world. Now, the other part of this immersive environment, other than for work, and I'll come back to work in a little bit, is, for instance, I will not do certain sports today because either I'm not as capable as I was when I was 25, or I can't get to those places. The ability to have an experience, an immersive experience, that's really what Surrogates was all about. Surrogates was also about the ability to, you want to climb Mount Everest, but you don't want to freeze to death. You want to go surf off a 50-foot wave, but you don't want to die. So is there a whole marketplace for mobile accelerated experiences? Absolutely. So I want to share this experience with my son and my wife. I want to experience it too firsthand. I want to have first-person telepresence awareness. So immersive collaboration is going to be a critical part of all this.
Give me soybeans. Yeah. Scroll up. Buy it. Buy. Next page. Close that. All right, beautiful. Sell it. All right, highlight 4. Scroll up. Up.
The voice-activated wearable computer.
Buy it. Yeah, baby.
It may be far out,
Hi, Donna. Oh, yeah, the meeting was fine.
but it's not far off.
I'll be on the afternoon flight.
So think about that. That's courtesy of IBM. It's really about a mashup of what? I like to travel, and I'm managing my own portfolio, and I'm collaborating with others, and why should I give up having to have a linear existence? So the notion of games, as I said earlier, or mobile education, sees in some examples of training in a mobile environment. the ability to be able to eventually, in the future, sputter information. With nanoscience, we'll be able to have devices that will give us access. Mobile smart spaces, which will change the dynamic. I talked a little bit about virtual worlds and serious games as part of it. Talked about mobile medicine. But let me give you an example of, this is a mobile device which is called a nanodermal, which will sputter information onto your skin that will be essential to your lifetime, if you will, okay? Give you an idea of holding your, looking at your cholesterol or being able to see what your information is. I know, there's some interesting data on it. It was designed by a woman. I was told that I could be a little out there in this group. So, I mean, I was told actually, you guys are a little hipper than other groups, so I put some stuff in there. But all of that's true, right? All of that's true. Just to give you a sense, when you think about mobile, you're thinking about a different kind of lifestyle thing. Now, I want to leave time for some questions. So let me leave you with, I want to show you one more video that I promised that I would show here. And then, I'm going to take your questions in a moment. We've hit all the major points, I believe. And this is that last, I call it bizarre mobile. Let me set this up. So here's the deal. I travel the world. I travel to 40 countries around the world, and inevitably I come across a commercial or a piece of media or something that is so interesting because it's so culturally different than we're, Americans or even Westerners. So this is actually a commercial for 3G in Japan. It was shown all out, throughout Asia. It wasn't shown in the US, but it's an interesting perception of what mobile looks like, and I find it very, very fascinating as a scientist. So check it out. The audio is a little low on it.
We like music.
This is from 3, which is in, so, my point of all that is saying, is this a lifestyle thing? Absolutely. Do people have a very different idea of all this? Absolutely. So let me end with this, and I'll take your questions as such. Look, the mobile future is all about radical innovation, okay? I've tried to give you a sense. It's much more about lifestyle. What's lifestyle mean? It's about the mashup of healthcare, education, training, work. Big strategic questions for you are, how are you going to invest in future innovation? How ready are you to lead your members, lead your customers into the future? What does that look like? How do you as an organization get in sync with being the empower of your members? What does that look like as an association? How are you an association for the 21st century? What does that mean? How do I need to change to become more future ready? Critical question, can mobile help? How do you invest in innovations? Am I suggesting everybody set up a MIT Media Lab, which I was associated with a number of years? No. What I am suggesting is a lot of innovators around you and paying attention to what they're doing. Not every mobile innovation is something you should do, but you should pay attention to those things that are relevant and try to find what is going to help. And again, here's the metric, how you can empower people into the future regarding better, deep collaboration, this ecosystem of communities, understand that. How do you make for more real-time communications, and what is the real content and knowledge they need, and how do you engineer that in a mobile environment would be important. You want to lead people into the future. How are you going to do that? That's a big strategic question to ask your board, to ask your staff, to ask yourself. How are we going to lead people into the future? How are we going to be in sync with this future, and what are we going to do to be able to be more relevant for them? If you're not asking those questions, I think every month, every day, every week, you may be missing something, okay? Collaborate with radicals. There's a lot of radicals around. You'd be surprised. You take the body of knowledge you have around your association. And associations, your raison d'etre is about how you can empower your folks for the future. That's what I think. My takeaway. You know, when it comes to your area, whether it's healthcare or messaging or whatever it is there a game there? Is there something you could collaborate with a radical to produce an innovation? Ask this question, what's the highest innovation we could produce, we could embrace that would empower our members, not just today, but for the future? What does that look like? Collaborate with radicals. Mobile is everything. It's not about just devices, it's not about the iPad, but you can't get into the game unless you know. If you haven't played with an iPad, go get one. If you don't know what serious games are, Google them and check them out and spend some time. If you're not sure. Now, there are other things that are emerging too. How many organizations, for instance, are in Second Life? How many folks are in Second Life? Yeah. So, that's an interesting area to experiment with. So, I'm going to leave some time now for your questions.